The opposition leader is with me. If you'd like to speak to Daniel Andrews, 96900 693 13 13 32. Mr. Andrews, good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
Just looking at the costings yesterday, can you tell me when the Metro project will begin?
You've got to get the planning done first, Neil. So the planning, which is critically important, $300 million will be provided in the very first budget of a Labor government if we're elected tomorrow. We've got to get this out of mothballs. It's been sitting there for 4 years and we just haven't seen the progress that we need. We aim to have this started by the end of the first term, if that is, if we're given a first term. No, well, you've got to plan it first.
So where will the money come from if you do it?
Well, there are important priorities here. You've got to get rid of the level crossings. That is our number one priority.
I understand
then
that.
you've got to get on and plan Melbourne Metro. This money, the money that Tony Abbott is saying he's going to take back from Victoria, that started off as Melbourne Metro public transport money. Then it became apparently East-West money. Again, we'll have a proper discussion with Tony Abbott about being a partner in our infrastructure priorities.
But you say you hope to start Metro within the 4 years, but you haven't made any financial allowance for it.
And the thing is, you've got to do the planning first. You've got to know how big the project is, scope it out. It'll take some time. I'm not for a moment trying to convince people. I'm not. No, hang on a minute. You've got to do the planning first. Exactly how much the thing costs, staging of it, how it unfolds. It's a big and complex project, but one whose time has come, I think, Neil.
Do you believe that if you do cancel East-West Link, that the federal government will pick up some of the compensation?
Well, I don't think compensation will be payable.
None.
But what I want to do is sit down with the winning bidders and talk about our priorities, our plans, the removal of those 50 dangerous and deadly and congested level crossings. They're from another time and they have to go, together with our plans in public transport, things like Mernda Rail, for instance, Neil. There are many things to build. And I'm looking forward, if we get that great honour, to sitting down with the builders of our state and talking about our clear priorities, optimistic and positive, getting on and creating jobs and dealing with these issues.
What's your wages policy?
Well,
I haven't seen it.
We will bargain in good faith. We will bargain in a very different way to the way this government has. And again, I think that we've seen so many of those who serve the public, whether it be firefighters or paramedics or many others, nurses indeed, that have not been treated as respectfully as they should have.
So, but what is your policy? Is it? I think the government, from memory, is CPI plus productivity. What's yours?
The government's policy is quite hard to know what the government's policy is,
because
you've got well, we will negotiate in good faith,
so do you have always we
will always strike a fair bargain that properly rewards those who work hard to keep us safe, for instance, but also and always leaving enough money in the budget to grow services.
But
Neil,
the problem is you've got a few IOUs to the union movement here.
Not at all, Neil.
The teachers,
not at all.
The nurses,
not at all, Neil.
the fireys, the AMBOs have been campaigning for you.
No, hang on a minute. I run my own race.
So no IOUs?
And the fact, no, there isn't, Neil. There are election commitments like 450 more firefighters. There are election commitments around 400 custody officers to return back to the streets, 400 uniformed police. They ought to be catching crooks, not babysitting crooks. There are election commitments around writing nurse-to-patient ratios into law once and for all and forever. These are all commitments that we've been completely open about and public about. The fact that the most trusted professions in our community are saying we want a government that puts people first, that's a commentary on how bad things are at the moment.
I've got a problem with your wages policy, I would assume, would be factored into your figures.
And Neil, if you look at it, there are substantial surpluses in the out years.
You don't have a policy on wages
Substantial surpluses in the out years. Professor Bob Officer, someone who I think, frankly, is without peer when it comes to financial matters, administration, public administration, has signed off on all of our costings.
So will the wage...
It's a much more modest offering than what the government's put forward.
Will the wage increases come out of those surpluses you're talking about?
Well, Neil, we've got a lot of trust to repair right across the community. There's a lot of work to do to make sure that we are not at war with our AMBOs or our nurses or our...
But what will that cost?
We will always negotiate in good faith and get a prudent, measured, responsible outcome that fairly rewards our nurses and our doctors and our AMBOs and our members of Vic Police and our firefighters, but always, Neil, always leaving enough money to then grow the services that we're all concerned about.
But that's why I'm having trouble. What is your wages policy?
Well,
Do you have one, or is it you're negotiating?
We are going to negotiate in good faith,
Okay.
and we believe we've made adequate provision in what is a modest set of offerings signed off by a leading global accounting firm, Moore Stephens, with oversight on top of that from Bob Officer, perhaps Australia's leading public finance expert.
Could we take a call, please? Just a quick call for the headphones. Chris, yes, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, g'day, Mr. Andrews. If once you get in, when's your first major project going to start? Because if East West Link doesn't go ahead, then the building industry is going to come to a stop for 12 months, really.
Well, Chris, I've had so many people in the building industry sit down with me in boardrooms and lunchrooms and on building sites for the last 4 years, crying out for a strong program of works. Our program, 50 level crossings being removed, upgrades to hospitals and schools, things like Mernda Rail, the Westgate distributor. Let me just give you that example. Thousands of trucks off the Westgate every day, a widening of the Westgate freeway between the ring road and the bridge. That'll be out to market in January and will be in the ground by the end of the year, beginning that project. I just want to make it very clear to you that not a shovel of dirt has been moved on the East-West project. We have a very different set of priorities, and we won't waste even a day in delivering on each of them in full, Chris.
Quite a few subcontractors have already bought equipment for the job, though.
Well, yeah, and the project doesn't have a power supply. The borers don't arrive for, another year and a half or something. This has been rushed and botched, Neil, and we've been very clear about an alternative set of priorities. And I can only say to you and your listeners, the last 4 years in so many ways has been wasted. If I'm given the great honour and responsibility of governing this state, we won't waste any time at all in getting Victoria back to work. As you and I discussed the other day, the very first act of a Labor government, the first bill that will pass through the Parliament, the first law that will be made under a Labor government is the Back to Work Act.
Do you think we will have an East-West link within 10 years?
I don't think so. I have different priorities. And again, if you make that investment, it comes at the expense of other investments. I am committed, and I will deliver the removal of 50 dangerous and congested level crossings, better local roads, and we're going to get on and make sure that when we ask people to leave the car at home and get onto public transport, we're asking them to get onto a first-rate public transport system.
You don't believe we'll need an East-West link within 10 years?
Again, I'm very focused, Neil, on campaigning hard about the positive and optimistic plans we've put forward, getting a mandate to deliver those, and doing just that. I think that there is a real series of confidence issues in terms of politicians. Okay. People are not trusting. So many people, I think, are disappointed with what's happened in Canberra.
Say one thing. Trust you?
Well, I hope to be able to change people's perceptions of this process, and the most important thing in that, I think, is to make clear, considered, common sense commitments, and that's what we've done in all those areas. Just yesterday, 24-hour pharmacies, a network of 20 of them, so that if your young kid, like our youngest son Joseph, runs out of Ventolin and has a bit of asthma trouble in the evening, you don't have to go to a scary and busy emergency department. You can go to the 24-hour pharmacy. I've made these commitments. I want to honour them. I will honour them, and I think that'll go a long way to restoring at least some confidence in our political process.
Steve, go ahead, please.
Mr. Andrews, I was just surprised yesterday in your announcement of policies that you're going to save $40 million by getting rid of executives in the public service. Why did it take to you yesterday for that to be announced? Who are these public service and when will they be gone?
Well,
have you made any provisions for redundancy?
Well, Steve, it's fully funded and fully costed. And I think that in order for us to hire more nurses, more AMBOs, more firefighters, I make no apology for dealing with the fact that I think that the senior executive, this is 50-odd people, right? The senior executive has grown while the rest of the public sector has shrunk or not grown enough. I think this is a balanced approach looking to the future, and it's the front line that we've got to support, and it's not someone on $250,000+ a year in most instances that's out there responding to the O call. It's usually someone paid much less, and we need more of them.
The railway crossings, how many will you build in 4 years?
We aim to have 20 of those done.
And how many of those are already funded?
No. All of these level crossings. Let's not get... No, I'm not going to get into these word games responding to... responding to the Liberal Party. Responding to the Liberal Party. Let me be very clear about this, Neil. You sell a long-term lease to the Port of Melbourne. We announced it a year ago. Liberal Party bagged it, then they copied it. That fully funds the removal of these 50 level crossings.
But how many of those that you're on your list have already been planned?
There's been a little bit of planning done on some of these projects. Oh, look, I'd have to come back to you on the exact number and the location of them.
Michael O'Brien's been going on at me about Burke Road, Camberwell for years.
But hang on a minute.
Fixing it.
But let's just go back to one really important point. When we made this announcement a year ago, the current government said it couldn't be done. There's no way you could do 50 level crossings. Now they're pretending that they're in fact doing more than that. It's all funded, it's all costed, it's all been signed off. They're going to go, they have to go, but they'll only be removed under a Labor government.
This will interest you. We're getting reports of another fire in the Latrobe Valley at the open cut coal mine. The CFA has confirmed it's responding to hotspots in a mine at Loy Yang.
Gee, I hope that's not the case.
Yeah, I hope it is.
That was a very, very difficult time for the people of Morwell, and they'll be very concerned. Let's hope that can be controlled as quickly as possible.
What sort of leader will you be?
A leader that doesn't waste even one day in delivering on all of my commitments, always listening to the people of Victoria and trying to bring a bit of trust and faith back into the way our politics works. I'm not going to do what Mr Abbott has done, and I'm not going to do what the current government has done. I won't break my word, and I won't waste even one day, Neil.
Do you wish Dennis Napthine well?
Look, Dennis Napthine has been in politics a long time. It's fair to say I probably knew Ted Baillieu a little bit better than the current Premier, but you've got to respect anyone who spends that long in public life. I honour his service. I wish him and his family well.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much, Neil.
The opposition leader, the Alternative Premier, Daniel Andrews. We're coming up to the 10 o'clock news.